classical is basically a melodic style. Okay, a lot of their harmony, I'm just being kind of technical for the guitar players here. A lot of the harmony was taken out. They wouldn't even, there's a time in classical, you probably studied in theory, where they wouldn't let you use a flat five, right? Called the diablo or the, it was a bad note, because they didn't want the harmony in there, okay? So it's basically melodic style. But what we do, one thing, like, I used to watch Victor with the flectones. And what I honestly could say was he was, for a long time, he was the only musician in the whole industry where I didn't know what he was going to play when he got on stage, because he might play melodically, his show, rhythmically. We know how the flectones play rhythmically. Everything's in an odd meter. And then here he is playing chords on the bass, right? Amazing Grace, No Reason. Well, he was the only musician that was doing that. Like, I love Flea of the Chili Peppers, but it's going to be rhythmic. I love a lot of jazz guys. I won't name their names, but it's going to be harmony. You see me? Their melodicism, their harmony is way up there, but their melodicism won't be as great as Yngwie Malmsteen. They can't play with that. Their rhythm's not going to be good enough to play with James Brown. James Brown will be yelling at him, hey, what are you doing? You see what I mean? So one way to really find your voice, and what we did, right, to work from the bottom up, because we didn't come from money. We came from a tobacco field, our first job, right? Tobacco field, picking tobacco, and we had to lift ourselves out. So this is why I'm thinking, so we have to sound like $1 million. But the way we did it was by being complete. Melody, rhythm, and harmony. So classical is a melodic style. The other thing I want to talk to the guitar player about, without taking up too much time, was when I was young, we hated classical, because I wanted to be like, I told my teachers from 5th grade all the way to 3.5 years of college that I wanted to play like Jimi Hendrix and be rich like Van Halen. You see that? He has 9 Lamborghinis. I want an orange Lamborghini. Teachers say, oh, you're wasting your time. That doesn't make any sense. But when I was young, we didn't like classical. But then in the 80s, Yngwie Malmsteen came out. I remember none of the guitar players were in the classical class. Then the 80s, the guitar class, classical was full, because they all wanted to learn classical, like Yngwie. They wanted to learn Paganini and all that stuff, Yngwie. So it switched. You see what I mean? So styles switch all the time. Right now you might not like classical, but one time they didn't like jazz. You see what I mean? They said jazz was race music or whatever. And then it got so big during the 50s when Nat King Cole had a television show, Duke Ellington has a television show, Louis George got a television. It got so big, same thing with rock and roll. When it came out, it was the devil's music during the 50s. First with Little Richard and then Chuck Berry. You see what I mean? That was really bad music. Now it's a standard. Well, it became a standard. So anyway, music changes all the time. But melody, rhythm, and harmony is a trick that we use, and how I know I can always move the crowd. You see what I mean? Miles Davis used to tell his musicians, like Charlie Parker, we'll not get off, I don't want to take you too much time. But Charlie Parker, when he first went to New York, and they had cutting heads, right? So back then you go to New York, and you go to certain places, and you try to see how good you were. If you could make it through the tunes, you would move up, you'd be on record albums. But Charlie Parker was really good. Technically, he was melodically and rhythmically good, because his dad was a tap dancer, and he had chops like crazy, but he didn't know the chords. So he'd get through a couple tunes that stayed in the same key. But when they do a tune like Tune Up by Miles Davis, that's 3 different keys, and he's just ripping through it, but he's not playing the changes. So of course the story goes, the drummer threw a cymbal at him, right? But he goes back to Kansas City, his home, and practices for a couple years. It's on the internet. You can see Charlie Parker talking. Him and Stan Getz talking about they would easily just practice 19 hours a day. Like that was like a normal thing. But when he came back, he had all 3, melody, rhythm, harmony. And of course, he is the bebop master. Okay. So, but that's just a technical thing to find your voice. Music is melody. That's how you move the crowd. You see, melodically, rhythmically, and harmonically. And they all will run out. If I do too much melodicism, too much Van Halen, If I do too much, it's good for a second, but then your body changes, and you're gonna either need rhythm and harmony. And when you do a whole lot of rhythm, that's why I try to hit them hard with a lot of melody, maybe Van Halen in a jazz song, and it hits hard, right? And then when it runs out, it pulls me right into the next level, harmony. It makes it more substantial. You see? So these are little tricks of the trade that our ancestors have used and we use today. That's what you hear tonight. When you hear, if you go to our show tonight, you're gonna hear melody, tons of it, a lot of it, virtuoso, rhythm, virtuoso rhythm, where you gotta study to see what we're doing, and harmony. You're gonna have to study that to see what we're doing too. And that's the three aspects of music to really find your own voice. That can help you. It's not the final, but it's a great step in getting there.
Reggie, you say melody.
Just hard work, dedication, and perspiration.